live now, councillors. That sounds promising. Cool. Thank you. So welcome everyone to Buller District Council Extraordinary Meeting 14th of May 2025. And the main item on the agenda is the adoption of Local Water Done Well Consultation document. So I'll declare the meeting open at 3:31 and welcome online councillors Reedy, Naylon and O'Keefe. And I'll call for apologies. Agenda item 1, we have recorded Councillor Webb and Iwi Rep Ned Talfrey, and just noting Councillor O'Keefe is required to leave at 4:45 if we're still here then. Is there any other apologies anyone needs to note? Okay, I'll move that way. Is there a second? Deputy Mayor Basher, all in favour? Any against? Carried. Thank you. Agenda item 2, members' interests. Are there any matters on today's agenda for which members wish to declare a financial or non-financial interest? Can't imagine there'll be any, so I'll move that there are none to record. Seconded, Councillor Weston. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried. Thanks. Right, the main agenda item to talk about today is agenda item 3, which is our Local Water Done Well. I'm going to pass over straight away to John Salmon, who's no stranger to us in terms of the work that's gone on to get us to this stage. John, I know you're going to introduce the paper for the benefit. Some of this may be already known by councillors, but for the benefit of anyone who is watching, it's useful if you give a good introduction to the paper, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, councillors, for attending today, and to those listening in. So this report and draft consultation document in front of you today has been an accumulation of work over the last couple of years. Council have dedicated significant effort to ensuring that our community's water management reflects both the needs of our residents and the expectations of the legislation. This project has involved extensive research, collaboration and engagement with stakeholders to explore the best approach to delivering reliable and high quality water services, and in particular drinking water. There's a few things I need to highlight. We need to highlight the fact that regardless of which option is chosen later in the year, water services are going to cost more in the future. I think Buller have been proactive in our approach, with Mayor Jamie writing to all the councils in the South Island when the previous government's Affordable Waters reform was repealed. That was previously known as, obviously, Three Waters. There have been comments from other councils, as well as the government, which have alluded to the fact that we have done everything we can so far to get the best results for our communities. Obviously, as Jamie alluded to earlier on, we have had multiple workshops, and the portfolio leads from Infrastructure, Councillor Weston and Councillor Grafton, have been actively involved throughout the process. So thank you, gentlemen, for your time and efforts on that. So today we present this report. It's not as a final decision, but as an essential step in confirming the key options for consultation. It reflects insights we've gathered, the discussions we have had, and the groundwork laid to ensure that when the key decision is made later this year, it is one that is informed by thorough consideration and community input. We're fully aware that the reform is significant, and I would say it's probably one of the most significant in local government's history, and I think we all need to be aware of that. We're also aware that it's really difficult to understand. Not only is it difficult for elected members to understand, it's the staff to understand. I'm fully aware that it's going to be really difficult for the public to understand. What we want to try and do is make it as easy as possible, but noting there are a lot of technicalities that are still to be worked through, and that will be worked through in the coming months and years. One thing I wanted to point out is that I would love to be able to give specific examples of what it could mean for our residents in Karamea, Reeston, etc. But that information has not been validated as of yet. All the financial and modelling is based on the requirements of the Act, but it's also been based on the district-wide costs coming from the information provided in annual plans and annual reports. This is also how the modelling has been done across the country. The numbers provided are based on factual numbers, but there will also still need to be further work done as time goes on prior to delivery of the Water Services Delivery Plan, which hopefully you guys will adopt in July. Or August to force it to go to Parliament in September. Another thing I wanted to point out is that the financial planning in terms of the multi-council water CCO are based on assumptions, and that is similar to the financial modelling that has been undertaken around the country. They all have assumptions in them. This is for things like efficiency gains, overhead costs, etc. Just to add to this, the assumptions that we have used as well as our financial modelling have been run through the DIA, and we did have DIA representatives at the session that we held in Greymouth with the elected members of all three councils, so thanks to those who attended that. One thing I know that may be asked, and it's certainly something we need to consider, is what will happen to the council as an organisation once whichever option is chosen. We are working through that at the moment, but it's certainly safe to say there will be changes as to how the council will operate. Finally, I just wanted to make it clear that the options in front of you today in the draft document are the options which meet the requirements of the Act and they cost least compared to the others for our community. We're acutely aware of the financial considerations and affordability, and that they're obviously extremely important. But regardless of which choice is picked, everyone, including the public, have to understand the cost of water services will be more expensive in the future, and that's due to the legislation that we've got in front of us. So as I say, I'm happy to take any questions. There's obviously been a significant amount of work put into this document and the process as a whole, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, John. So the only question I saw ahead of time was from Councillor Naylon around some of the assumptions. Councillor Naylon, was there anything sort of arose out of that information that you needed further clarity on or anything?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I got the things late and I've been unloading bailiffs, so I haven't actually had a good look at it. But I guess what I want to try and point out is that I'm presuming that there's overhead costs in our current targeted rates, which will then go into general rates. Have we got any idea of what general rates will need to go up to cover those costs?
Through the chair. Thank you, Councillor Neil. That is a good question. The key part of this project ultimately was to get us up to this point and to get us to deliver the water service delivery plan in September. What happens with council after that, and in terms of the costs of what it means for a general rate, is something we do need to work through. But there is overheads that will go to the general rate. There's no getting away from that. But in terms of how that looks specifically, I'm not able to get you an answer today. But what I can give you reassurances of is there will be an answer very soon for that.
Okay. And I'm presuming there'll be a bit of a payback, because at the moment general rates covers stormwater, and stormwater is going to go out of there, so there'll be a little bit of surplus from there, I imagine.
Through chair. Yeah, that's absolutely correct, Councillor Neil, and you're spot on.
Okay, we'll open up for questions first, if there's anything around the process or the document itself. Councillor Weston.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. How many, it says metered properties, how many are metered in Westport?
Through chair, thank you, Councillor Weston. Most of the metering properties are in terms of the commercial business. I think we are doing metered properties for new builds, etc. now. What the exact number, I couldn't give you the answer to that, but Simon may have thoughts around how many, don't know the answer. But I certainly can get an answer for you. I don't know the specifics around how many metered at from.
Councillor Howard.
So my understanding from reading through the paper is, what's the ratepayers or council's ability to influence how it's being charged, like what pooling there is? Like currently we actually have Punakaiki and separate rating, and Waimang and Westport separately. If there's a new CCO, will they set the charges, or will council still have the ability to give direction on how they want to see the charging?
Through the chair. Thank you, Councillor Howard. Again, that's another good question, and one we actually had a discussion around earlier this morning. It depends really what choice is picked. If the multi-council option is the choice that's picked later in the year, how the charges are set will be up to the new business essentially. But the board will be made up of probably a couple of elected members from each of the councils will decide the board, and then the councils provide a statement of intent to the CCOs every year, as it does with Buller Holdings, etc. just now, so they can get set the strategic guidance to the new entity. But in terms of water pooling, we did discuss that. I think we obviously discussed this last year in terms of the enhanced annual plan as to what we're going to do for some of our smaller communities. I think it's something that we'll have to discuss as we move into next year's annual plan to be potentially look at pooling our water rates. That's what I think is would be a suggested option, but it is something to consider.
So all of the right to that. All of those I think the benefit, if we were to go down the multi-council CCO thing, then the benefit of us being part of that is we would influence those governance arrangements and how the board would operate and how Buller would be represented on that board and things. So they would then, set the expectations of what the commercial CCO would need to deliver. But there's no guarantee around harmonisation across the region or not, or within district or not. That would all be detail that will be fleshed out later. John.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, just to add to Jamie's point there, the financials that we've pulled together are non-price harmonisation across the 3 districts. One thing that kind of came out loud and clear when we started the work is that some of the thoughts was, well, are we having to subsidise other districts, etc. So what we've done is we've based it on non-price harmonisation at the moment. But I think, like I said, for next year, I would certainly recommend us having a look at how we can do a better, a more look at the quality in terms of water rates for the district. I think that's maybe a good idea.
Councillor Howard.
Questions around the consultation document.
Just push your button again, Joe.
Sorry. I've got a couple of questions around the consultation document. First one's on page 24 on our agenda, which is under what are we required to do. It's just got a comment under economic regulation saying the Commerce Commission to ensure consumer protections and maintain an independent perspective with a focus on affordability. I thought affordability didn't come into any of the objectives of.
My understanding, it doesn't come under the local water done well regulations, but I think it may well sit under the economic regulator, which I don't think has been set up yet. John?
Yeah, the economic regulator has not been set up, it's not live yet. What it will be the Commerce Commission it's going to be the Commerce Commission.
Is that a correct statement in the documentation then that it has a focus on affordability? Is that an official statement? Just in the last part of it under economic regulation.
So we're talking dot point 2, page 7 of the consultation document.
So we could maybe get that checked.
Yeah, we can check that, definitely. We'll have a look at that before we.
And the other one I had was on page 41. It was just a wording one under option 2. Under advantages, they've got other districts' priorities could be prioritised over Buller's needs. Well, that makes it sound as disadvantaged. Maybe it needs to be reworded under standalone internal business unit. The advantages that Buller needs could be prioritised, because that would be the advantage. That's just the way it's worded. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, what that's trying to say is that in terms of the labour market and the people that are able to fulfil the duties of the contractors, the labour, they could be looking at other districts as opposed to ourselves.
But that would be a disadvantage then.
Yes.
So it's put under advantages. So the wording doesn't match the advantages, so it needs to be reworded.
Yeah, good point.
Sorry.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Councillor Simpson, I think you're next. Then I'll go to you, O'Keefe. Councillor O'Keefe.
I've probably got about 3. To start with, is this audited by this water done well audited like our long-term plan is or not?
No, we have given the consultation document to the auditors because obviously it runs alongside the LTP. There will be what happens in September when we submit the Water Services Delivery Plan to Parliament. The DIA then review what we've done in the implementation plan. They review the service delivery plan, and then of course what I reckon will come with that will be some sort of audit on it. Yes.
Okay, the next one is, have we heard from Grey and Westland whether they're prepared to come on board with us?
Yep, is there an update on that, John?
Yes, certainly. Grey are meeting their council today, pretty much the same meeting as we're having at the moment. Both councils have put the preferred option, or the staff recommended preferred option is to create a multi-council CCO. So we should find out from Grey where that's at today. I think the Westland one, they're both going to consult starting on the 16th of this month, same as ourselves. So the consultation document that we have put in front of you has been given to the councils in Grey and Westland as well, and we made sure that the information we were providing was sort of streamlined. So the council haven't decided, but what I would say is that certainly from what the staff are putting in front of their elected members is pretty similar.
And thirdly, the fact that we're going with a preferred option, does that not give us, I thought we're meant to be going into these consultations with an open mind. So how do we get around saying this is the preferred option? It doesn't give us an open mind when we started off with 5 and you've weaned it down to 2. But that's not an open mind when we're saying that this is our preferred option.
I think Councillor Graft and Councillor Weston should be able to help with this one. I think we did do a multi-criteria analysis on with the portfolio leads in terms of that's how we managed to whittle it down to what we've currently got in front of you today. However, the preferred option, the reason we've put it as a preferred option is, well, is around affordability, what the requirements of the Act, what we're able to do, all the advantages. Ultimately, if you don't want to have a preferred option, we can look at removing those words. But I thought that certainly I took it from our perspective, all the workshops we've had, that this was going to be a preferred option. But it's not. Ultimately, it's also down to you guys and the community decide as the months go on.
Yeah, I understand that, but I thought as going out to the community, you have the advantages and disadvantages, but we shouldn't be siphoned into this is our preferred option. These are the options, and we have narrowed it down to 2 out of 5 type thing. And I just wondered, well, clearly it's legal because you've done everything, but in the past it's always that we get told we have to go into these meetings with an open mind. And here we are going to the community with very clearly a preferred option.
Thank you, Councillor Sampson. There is obviously, as part of the council paper, you do have if you don't feel that a preferred option is the right way forward, you can obviously not choose that. But I certainly felt that was, as a collective, we agreed that would be what the preferred option would be. So that's why I put it in front of you today. However, what I would say is I've done a lot of research whilst I've been writing this consultation document and report that's in front of you. I would say 90% of the council, in fact, more than that, of the councils, the reports that I've looked at certainly have got a preferred option in their consultation document.
And lastly, I have asked a number of times as for a figure on the percentage of targeted, partly targeted and non-targeted property rates that we have. How many properties do we have with no targeted rates? How many with partial target and how many with the 3 targeted rates?
So how many properties are connected in one way or another to our stormwater or to our wastewater or drinking water networks?
We do have the connection information. I could probably find out in a few minutes if it's required.
Yeah, well, I have asked you and I have asked the finance team as well, because it will be quite telling when we get submissions in to just see what numbers are targeted properties when we have our separation submissions come back, to give us an idea of if there's any, you know, if it's any clear message from those. Yeah.
I can get that. So I've got that.
Easy to have that information for the deliberation stage. Yeah. Councillor O'Keefe.
Hi guys, to the chair, just on page 30 of the agenda, which is page 13 of the draft document, under your drinking water. And if you go on to what about untreated water supplies, this is the it's not much a typo, but it's not very inclusive. So we've got here in the third paragraph, Little Wanganui subdivision, Mokanui, Hector, Ngakawa, Granity South and Waimangaroa supplies. And then towards the end of that caption of information there, it's got, they require upgrades for Little Wanganui and Waimangaroa, but you're not really including Mokanui anywhere after that. So that I know they're pretty hot, like Mokanui as a township's pretty concerned about this. So maybe including them in that conversation there.
If you don't mind, thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. Anthony, would that be something? Because I think we had that in there at one point.
I'm not sure why I can't see any reason not to include it. I think the question is more around what the legislation, at what level the legislation will require us to act, and I'm not sure that's clear yet. So there's no reason to include Mokanui in this statement. So I think if that's a simple thing to do, then that's something we should do.
Yeah, we can get that amended, Tony, no problem.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. If we join up with Graham Westland and they're not members of the LGFA, does that affect our ability to raise money? Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Weston. I realised about 5 minutes before I came into this meeting today, or 10 minutes, that we probably should have had that as an advantage. And the option one is the fact you can borrow more. It is in the table. It's in this table here. Under the multi-council water-owned organisation. But yeah, if it was to be a standalone business unit, we wouldn't have the ability to borrow any more money. And to see, you can borrow up to 500% depending on economies of scale. I think our figure's about 475%, give or take. But certainly, if it's a standalone business unit, you don't have the ability to borrow any more money.
I think the question though was what if Gray and Westland decide not to be members, or if are they members already of LGFA?
Oh, sorry if I misunderstood the question. I don't know the answer. I think they are. There's only 7 councils in it. There's only 7 councils in the country that's not. So I would imagine that they are.
I think,
sorry, 6.
Chair, I think that the new water entity would be funded under the LGFA. So the member council's involvement probably is not so relevant.
Councillor Reedy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the record, Gray and Westland are guarantors of LGFA. If we go for a CCO, we will, needless to say, to be able to borrow for the CCO, there is a requirement for a council, in this instance BDC, to also become a guarantor for lenders. It's in the LGFA latest financial accounts. So in answer to the question, yes, Westland and Gray are guarantors. BDC and a few other smaller councils like Kaikoura, Clutha and a few others are not guarantors. But of course that is one of the consultation topics for the LTP. As for the CCO, if the CCO, regardless of whether or not it's a standalone CCO or a combined CCO, the only way it can borrow money from LGFA is if each of the participating councils are guarantors of LGFA. But check it out. Happy to be corrected, but that's the facts as they stand at the moment.
Good, thank you. Councillor Fowler. And then you, Councillor Arnold.
I didn't have any questions. I thought it was a really good document. The only small thing is page 43. I just would prefer if we avoid abbreviations where possible, because I got to the WSDP and I kind of had to think about like, what is that? So yeah, if we could just have that in long version for the first of each page sort of thing, that would be good. The rest of the document read quite well, but just that one single page.
Thank you. Councillor Naylor.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just in terms of the public consultation, and we've got a preferred option at the moment, which may change, but what sort of metrics are we going to be looking at to actually change that around if the community comes back and says, no, we want standalone?
What sort of what? Sorry, methods?
Metrics.
Oh, metrics.
We're looking for, a number of submissions against the preferred option, or is it going to be a numbers game, or how are we going to actually do it? I think it's quite important that we talk about it before the submissions come in, especially if we're going out with a preferred option.
So unless there's some guidance different, I don't think it'll be any different to any other submissions and consultation process where it's never a poll. It's always a process that councillors have to take into consideration the feedback and then make their greater judgment on what we also know around the law and legislation and all the other inputs into decision making. There's nothing special about this in terms of under the Act or anything that says.
There's through Chair, thank you. There's nothing that says an X percentage means that you have to stay, or an X percentage seems that you have to go, or whatever it may look. You have to. Ultimately, it's like any other council decision, and you'll take the decision based on the feedback you all receive from your communities, and also whilst you understand the laws, etc., and what you feel to be the right thing for the district moving forward. That's ultimately the decision. At the end of the day, in July or August, will be your decision to make. And the one thing, the water service delivery plan that will be given to Parliament has to have chief executive sign off. You, of course, adopt it, but the chief executive has to be comfortable with the information that's in it. Just to those who are on about audit, but that's one of the legalities of the legislation. But in terms of the decision making process, at the moment, to decide the future service delivery model, that is up to you to decide.
I guess my concern is around, with past consultation with the Let's Talk Buller. So we get a report back, a consultation report back, and we get a percentage of those that responded in favour. And, sometimes it's 70%, sometimes it's 77%. But then at the last annual or enhanced annual plan process, we got over 400 submissions, which were pro forma. But they didn't seem to, to rate. They don't get a mention. So I just want to be sure of the ground rules before we go out, that, that they will carry equal weight to Let's Talk Buller return.
They carry the weight that the councillors want to put on them, unfortunately, under the Act. It's this table that has to determine the weight they want to put on the value of a submission. This question come up a little bit in Karamea, and it was the way I tried to explain it. Again, every council will have a different view, but my view is that one really well thought out and constructive submission that suggests a different way of solving the problem that we're that we're debating is worth more than 20 that are just ticking a box saying don't do something but aren't offering any alternative that they would be satisfied with, if you know what I mean. So I mean, everyone has to, that's how I weigh things, but it depends on every councillor, I guess. Like I say, I don't think it is a numbers game.
I think one thing I just would like to add is there is examples, I think, across the hill where 86 or 87% of the the ratepayers chose one option, and the council decided a different option based on their knowledge and understanding. So it's certainly not a numbers game. It is it's a political elected members' decision that you have to take later in the year.
Yep, Councillor Sampson. And I'll come back to you, Councillor Reedy.
Oh,
you're first,
yeah,
yep.
okay. In the document, or in the preamble or in the document, it says that establishment costs are going to be transferred as to a capital cost, but how far back do those costs go? Like, we have spent money with going to Tasman and Marlborough, and that's fallen by the way now. We've spent more money looking down south. So at what point do these costs get transferred to capital, and what have we spent to date, please?
John.
Through the chair, in terms of the cost to date, none of the costs that we have incurred have been, that they all came from the National Transition Unit grant money. So it's not been any money that's on the ratepayer. Anthony and myself had a conversation last week that we will now, depending on what this decision is taken, we'll have to move on to start looking at establishment costs that would go against whichever option is picked. We still have a little bit of money left in that budget, but certainly there's no cost being incurred to the ratepayer at present. And that's been for all.
At some point, there'll have to be a decision made once all the councils have agreed on an option, and say sort of the I don't know, establishment phase begins, and
Yes, just my understanding is establishment of the new entity. So everything we're doing is getting prepared and making a decision for that, which is covered by other funds. So when, assuming the three councils say yes, let's go, that's when those costs start to be incurred and will be transferred across at the point that entity starts up.
And they'll be substantial.
I think we have.
There'll be substantial costs because it'll be legal and or personal.
Yeah, I just wondered whether the preamble up to that point was going to be included.
No, as John's confirmed, it's already funded.
Councillor Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of matters, if I may, please. The first one is we are having initially Westland and Grey not really having an interest in forming a multi-council CCO. They're now saying yes, we are interested. And I hear you saying about meeting today, but here it is. We're going out for consultation with 2 days notice, basically, with the meeting today to adopt the consultation document. But we have no plan B. What if both councils turn around and say, no, we're going to go it alone? We have no plan B, so that concerns me. Secondly, in terms of the disadvantages for a standalone CCO for the Buller district, those disadvantages don't stack up for me. I don't understand why we have not looked at that. I don't understand also why it cannot, if we did have a standalone CCO, why it cannot come under the umbrella of Buller Holdings Limited, where we have directors. I know it's supposed to be ring fenced, but having a separate company organisation like we do with West Reef, admittedly they come under the umbrella of BHL, but we can set up the company, a CCO company for water, which, albeit, as I say, comes under the BHL umbrella, but can still have its own board of directors if necessary. And we are a standalone. We are looking at being a guarantor. We're borrowers at the moment, guarantor for LGFA. That's a requirement for a water services CCO. For whatever reason, as I say, it's been discounted, and it's got me concerned. As I say, no plan B, and no real foresight into the council-owned CCO. I'll just leave it there. Thanks.
Thanks, councillor Eddie. So, Anthony, do you want to, I understand the Act precludes BHL doing it. It was certainly my question early on as well.
Yes, so we've had this question in the past that this water services entity needs to be a standalone function. We did ask the question around whether BHL would be an appropriate entity to cover it, and the answer that we had at the time was no. In terms of the plan B, we still do have other opportunities in the future. We've got invitations from the likes of Marlborough and Tasman in their consultation document, which has said they want to do their own thing to start with. Both of them have specifically mentioned each other and us as future partners when over time, once they understand what they're doing better. So whilst there isn't a direct plan B being put down here, there are other options should that fail. The other aspect of this is the DIA have been sending very clear signals that it will be able to intervene with councils that it believes are not able to deliver a sustainable, financially sustainable model. And effectively, the implication is that they will start forcing some of these entities to exist. So plan B is never going to be tidy, but there are plan Bs.
Thank you. Okay, well, I think we need to have a look back at the report and the recommendations. And there are 1 through 7 of those. We'll take them one at a time. So the first one is just that council receives the report. Somebody like to move that way? Councillor Grafton, seconded Councillor Howard. Any further discussion on that one? All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Right, the second one is that council adopts the draft local water done well consultation document, which we have just discussed. Somebody like to move that way? Councillor Grafton, seconded Councillor Weston.
Can we just clarify, Mr. Mayor, whether the preferred option is in or out with that?
Further down, I think. Number 4 addresses that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any debate on number 2? It's been moved and seconded. Councillor Sampson.
This is a consultation document. How much consultation are we going to have with our communities? Because I noted that John said earlier, it's difficult for us to understand, and I acknowledge that because it is. And we've got to get it out to communities to understand it, because the whole thing is a farce if nobody's going to understand it. So are we going to be having this document to go out for consultation?
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Sampson. It's a very good question. What we've done is I was going to propose that we discussed it after the report was read, and whatever options are picked. We are proposing to do 4 community meetings, which is a presentation to the community with the people, Simon, myself, Jamie, any elected member who can attend. There's going to be we're proposing to do one in Caramere, one in Reefton, one in Westport, and one in Granity. And that will be in an evening at 6:30 PM, if that's what you guys choose, at 6:30 PM until 7:30 PM, or if it goes on longer, it goes on longer, and that will be a presentation of what it is, what local water done well is, what the options are, what the advantages are, basically a further conversation to this. Then we'll have a Q&A, an individual Q&A session with each of the subject matter experts, so they can talk about certain things. If it's to do with certain pipes and things like that, we can discuss it with Anthony's team. If it's to do with the project, we can discuss it with me. We certainly thought about doing community meetings with presentations was the way to go. And I'm going to put my hand forward, and I will meet individual ratepayers if they want to a meeting about it as well. That was a proposal.
Thanks, councillor. Good question. Okay, that's been moved and seconded to adopt the draft local water done well consultation document. All those in favour? Any against?
Name recorded, please.
Two against. Thank you. Motion's carried. That council 3, approve the chief executive officer or mayor to sign off on any grammatical or minor amendments to the consultation document if required. Moved deputy mayor, seconded councillor Farlett. I think we've already pointed out a couple of those, so those little changes that have been put forward will be done.
Just, I didn't see any out of a pen or anything, just a surety that those items that were brought up have been noted and will be changed.
They have been noted and we will change them.
Councillor Sampson.
Well, they were changed in the LTP that were brought up. For example, the stormwater separation. We had 2 different figures there and it was brought up. So please make sure that Mokanui is included in the other.
I believe we have Carlos listening right now anyway, so I'm sure he'll be making the changes.
Excellent.
Carlos will be listening right now, making amendments.
Well, they've been noted down here, so that's good. So, yep, it moved and seconded, I think, isn't it? To approve the chief executive officer and myself to sign off on any grammatical or minor amendments to the consultation document if required. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Any against?
Name recorded, please.
It's carried. Okay, that council 4 confirms the preferred choice of creating a multi-council water services organisation with 2 or more councils. Moved councillor Weston, seconded councillor Grafton. Open that for debate. Nothing heard. Everyone wants to speak. Oh, councillor Nell.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm unmuted. Yep. Yeah, I'd prefer that we didn't go out with a preferred option. I like the choice of, let the people decide which one. I guess what happens with a preferred option when it comes to the hearings and the deliberations, you're sort of bound to defend your preferred option rather than, listen with an open mind of what the submitters want to say. So I think it would be far better for everybody if we just went out and said, here, we've narrowed it down to these 2. We want to hear from you. And then, like you said before, we'll weigh up the submissions, we'll weigh up all the information and we'll make a decision. We seem to have made the decision before we've heard from the public.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Basher.
I think in the consultation document, when you look at the consultation document, the decision is pretty obvious. And I think what we're doing is really confirming what is the most logical decision for the best cost outcome for our ratepayer. So even if we didn't put a preferred outcome, we've got a preferred outcome, and it's the best. It seems to be the best way forward. So I don't have a problem with saying what we think is the best outcome.
Thank you, councillor Sampson.
And for that very reason, I don't think we should have that preferred option, because you've got your advantages and disadvantages very clearly spelled out. And it means that we're not, because it's in the document, it's really driven hard that this is the preferred option, and it's repetitive through with the thumbs up, and that's, I'd prefer it not to be.
Thank you. I've also been of 2 minds around preferred option or not, but I think in quite complex decisions like this that have had so much public information and so much government influence and legislative change and whatever, that I think it is incumbent on council to provide a bit of leadership around what we think, having been immersed in it. I would argue probably more than most members of the public that'll be putting a submission in, because we've been talking local water done well or 3 waters reform for 2 or 3 years now. I think 2 years plus anyway. So I mean, I think that's the benefit in those really complex, it's definitely not a yes, no answer, this one, and I think providing a preferred option and some leadership around where our technical team are advising us is the preferred option is sensible. I'll be supporting it. Is there anyone else wish to speak to it before I put it to the vote? Councillor Nolan, you've had a go.
Can I have another little go, Mr. Mayor? I guess my concern is with, you've talked about, this has been around for quite a while, but this is the first time, when this paper came out that we actually saw some numbers. I have great faith in the numbers around the standalone because I'm assuming they come directly from the LTP for the next 9 years, and they've been the assumptions have been made, and some assumptions have been tested with past work, etc. I have a little bit more concern around the assumptions around the combined, because what we've found in the past, and the TTPP as a prime example, is that we thought we were going in with the other two councils at a very, very low level of cost, and it's turned out to be a very, very high level. And so I think, to me, those assumptions for that option with there's quite a difference, $1,000 difference, if you like, between the two options. They aren't as robust as the standalone option. And that's why I think it would be better if we backed off a little bit about a preferred option, because I guess my other question is, what happens down the track if this thing starts getting bigger than Ben-Hur, like other things have in the past, and that the combined option turns out to be the most expensive option?
So seeing we're derogating from standing orders a little bit, I'll just give a quick reply to that. Is I think we all accept that there's a whole lot of unknowns that will be negotiated down the road, and there'll be exit ramps for council. But we may get into negotiations with, if let's assume we go down a multi-council CCO, and that's what our neighbours choose to do. When we get to Tintax around board setup, or could be a myriad of things, if it doesn't work for this council, well, we won't sign up to it. That's the thing. It's going to have to be mutually agreed as to what that board composition is, or how what we're bringing to the entity would be recognised in the shareholding, or all of those things have to be all worked through. And there could well be things that we just end up determining are game changers, and we have to resort to whatever plan B is. I don't think we know that bit yet. Councillor Grafton.
So just on that one, and I suppose John can answer that, these figures aren't going to change any before we adopt any entity anyway, so we can only go on these figures now. And the second one, the single entity, Colin brought up before, and Graham, was they've never said no, and we had that meeting in Greymouth or whatever, DIA or whatever, never said no to a single entity, but they pretty much said that there was no way. So again, I don't know that that's a choice anyway, but it needs to be in there. But again, it didn't look like there was a possibility of us going alone anyway.
Do you think?
Can I go?
Yeah, you can drink debate if you can answer a question out of that. Otherwise, Councillor O'Keefe.
Hi guys, yeah, just a suggestion around, I do tend to agree with Rosalie and Graham around the preempting and steering of this document, but I hear both sides. Couldn't we compromise a little bit by taking away the wording, but then use just some slight colouring, like red, like a traffic light, instead of because there are like Rosalie said, the disadvantages and advantages clearly laid out for our people to read. I suppose if you're going to sort of compromise a little bit by taking away that we prefer this option to this a slight colour, red, amber, green.
So which one's the preferred one?
Well, there's obviously ones that have the worst disadvantages are the ones you're going to put in red, and then there's like medium options, and then the ones that are green that, you know, have the less disadvantages and risk. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Okay, so I've just had some advice that the water services, well, you answer it.
So we just had clarification that the Water Services Act number 2 requires a preferred option to be put forward. The law says we have to have a preferred option.
You don't have to make a recommendation, so we can take that on there.
Well,
It's confirming the preferred choice. It's not.
yeah,
If
that's what it is, but we have to have a preferred. Yeah. Okay, well, that's good clarity. Thank you for checking that. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so with that, so so we are required to have a preferred option. So really, it just comes down to, of those 2 options, that we've narrowed the paper down to. The recommendation that's been moved and seconded is that a multi-council water service organisation with 2 or more councils is the preferred option of this council. That's been moved and seconded. Do you have something else, Councillor Sampson?
Yes, why have that recommendation number 4 at all then, if it's required?
Because our preferred, well, because the preferred option could be the other one, if that's what council wanted to decide. We have to have a preferred option, but we have to choose one. And so staff recommendation on balance is that CCO is the one that is preferred on the face of it. Okay, I think everyone clear on that? Okay, all those in favour? Those against?
Name recorded, please.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Just Mr. Mayor, on number 2, now that we've confirmed number 4, I did vote against number 2, but obviously I'm happy to adopt the draft now that we've done number 4. But you don't have to change my vote. I just want people to know that you know, the reason I voted against that was because we hadn't sorted out number 4.
Okay. Right, recommendation 5, that Council 5 notes the consultation period will run from Friday the 16th of May and close at 4:30 p.m. on Monday the 13th of June. I'll move that way. Seconded Deputy Mayor Basher. Everyone comfortable with that? All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. And that Council 6 notes the submission hearings are scheduled for Monday the 30th of June and Tuesday the 1st of July 2025. Move that way. Seconded Councillor Sampson. I understand those invites have gone out, so they should all be in your calendars now. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. And that Council 7 notes the deliberations are scheduled for the 2nd and 3rd of July, but could be moved forward if required after the hearings are finished. Happy to move that way. Seconded Councillor Weston. Can we just get some clarity around why that's like that? I guess because we just don't know how many submissions we're going to get. Yeah. So that's just allowing a little bit of flexibility to tighten or lengthen depending on how extensive the submissions are. So that's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you, councillors. I don't think there's any other business for today in terms of formal meeting, so I will declare the meeting closed at 4:25. Those online, please don't hang up. We want to have a quick